circle is a scale model, a scale map, to perfect scale of Germany. If you look at an atlas this evening, you'll see that this is perfectly to scale. But what we do have then, of course, after the division is many different armies entering into Berlin and the eventual division. Now, you'll be speaking about the Potsdam Conference a little bit later. Of course, this would be vital in all of this. But in the south of Germany, we have the American zone on the border, the French zone, eventually the British zone in the north, and then the Soviet zone in the east. We can also see Berlin divided into four, not into zones, but sectors, the sectors of Berlin. Now, we are standing currently, technically, in the east, in the Soviet sector, and that's the American sector on the other side of the water over there. So, of course, we have the French and British sectors as well, and this would be frozen in place really by the Cold War and the deepening divisions between the East and West. Now, in 1949, we have new countries formed, East and West Germany, the German Democratic Republic and the Federal Republic of Germany. The Federal Republic of Germany would have a capital in Bonn, over here. East Germany, technically capital in East Berlin. And we'll see where the parliament was in East Berlin a little bit later. 1952 is also a big year for us, as that's when the border is closed between the two countries. You can't freely go from the east into the west any longer. And of course that meant that there was no escape possible or no opportunity to get into the west apart from getting yourself into West Berlin, because Berlin would be the enclave, Berlin would be the island, surrounded on all sides by the east, as you can see there. And that is the vital thing, Berlin's location within East Germany. And that was what was so problematic for this city. It meant that you could get into West Berlin and make good your journey into West Germany. You would actually be flown into West Germany. You would be given a gift of 100 Deutschmarks, an apartment and a job. And of course, this sets you up for a new life in the West. So this was the promised land, getting yourself into this side of the city, West Berlin. And there was nothing to prevent you accessing West Berlin until the 13th of August 1961, when we have the building of the Berlin Wall. And then of course, this Berlin Wall stretches entirely around the western city. And I mean, I don't know about you, but even though I studied all this in university, I always thought that the Berlin Wall went straight through the city, just line right through the map, and that was Berlin, everything on one side east, everything on the other side west. But of course, because of West Berlin's status inside of East Germany, it meant that the wall had to stretch around the west, 96 miles, and it was in fact the free people, the democratic people, who were the ones behind the wall. So completely contrary to what I thought before I came here. And it means that it stretches, like I said, 156 kilometers all the way around West Berlin. It is built by East Germany, it's policed by East Germany, it's to prevent East Germans accessing West Berlin. And of course, the last thing then, we do have these highways, these links, these arteries linking West Germany to West Berlin. To enter into one of these pre-approved highways, you cross at checkpoint A, checkpoint Alpha. At the end of the highway is checkpoint B, checkpoint Bravo. And in the city centre then we have checkpoint C that we saw a couple of moments ago, checkpoint Charlie. And that would be the final checkpoint linking west to East Berlin. Now, we are looking out at the former no man's land, now home to all of the buildings, including the Mercedes-Benz Arena. Indeed. It's kind of a strange one today, I suppose, but we have to remember that when we see the wall wasn't really feared because nobody would get to see the wall. The wall was hidden behind layers of defences. Buffer zones that we call the no man's land or the death strip. And that's what was really feared, because there was always two walls in Berlin. A wall about 50 meters in this direction, 3 meters high. If you're brave enough to scale the first line of wall, you come upon a barbed wire fence. You're brave enough to scale the barbed wire fence, well then you're running between the guard towers, because there was 302 guard towers around the circumference of Berlin, and guard towers every 200 meters in the city centre. And that's what was feared. The border guards, who had been given an order to kill, a shoot to kill order in 1974, Schießbefehl, essentially in German. Of course, with these guards given an order to kill, it means that 100 540 people would die at the Berlin Wall, and it means that 5,075 people would escape. It's a big number, 5,075, but the wall wasn't always this secure, because this is the fourth version of the Berlin Wall. The first wall was barbed wire, and it was built in a day, very suddenly. And of course, they then they build upon the wall. Eventually we get a block wall, we get a concrete slab wall. Grenzmauer 75, border wall 75. 1975, the wall is built in this way. Eventually you can see it's these individual strips of concrete there. There would be 40,000 of these individual strips around the circumference of West Berlin. And of course, the most hilarious statistic that any tour guide gets to tell you, it's the number 500. Because 500 of 5,000 escapes were border guards serving in no man's land who took the opportunity to jump the wall themselves. 1/10 of all successful escapes were border guards. That tells you a lot about the wall. That tells you a lot about what they were trying to do, essentially. And it's kind of a stunning number. By the way, these border guards, before their shift working together in a guard tower, they rarely knew each other. They were strangers. Why? They didn't want them becoming friendly. They didn't want them planning escape. Sir.
So if you were to escape and get to the other side, like how come you weren't sent back?
Oh, the West would encourage you to come across. They would love you to come across, because every person who made good this escape into the West was undermining communism as a concept. That was the whole idea. They were loving if you came across the border, because of course that meant that the West was better in some way to them, yeah, and was a better ideal of life. But yeah, really important. And of course, we have to remember that there was layers of defenses on this side of the wall, but nothing on the other side of the wall. We